Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me, as always, are Nick Martin and Tim Kalinowski. Together, the three of us will go over the 8 NHL games coming our way on Monday night and Tuesday night. We got a couple game ones on Monday, a couple game twos on Monday, then 4 game twos on Tuesday. Right off the jump, we are recording this during the second intermission of Preds and Canucks, but that will be the last one we talk about. So we should hopefully have a pretty good idea of where that game's going to land, and we'll work around it. But we'll start with the Maple Leafs and Bruins in Boston. The Leafs plus 115-ish right now. Boston minus 135 after their game one win. Total at 5.5. Nobody knows what's going on with William Nylander, and that's something to just note off the jump. I will say that I think that there's been a little bit of not a little bit, a lot, because of with this matchup and this one of these teams, it's impossible to just say a little bit. I think things are going a little bit off the rails already in this thing, and I mean the Bruins won 5-1. It was game one. If there's any bit of a overreaction in this line, I think I would look to bet Toronto at plus 120 here. Especially knowing that there's a chance that that number craters if Nylander comes in, not craters, but the shorten. Wasn't a good game, but I mean, I don't think that's probably. I would think that's going to be the worst that we see out of Toronto for game one, or else they're in a lot of trouble here, Nick.
Yeah, what did they lose last year in game one? 7-3 or
7-3.
something? They got
Yeah,
smoked. But I don't think I'm going to do it. I actually think I'd feel more comfortable giving up some value to make sure Nylander was going to play too if I was going to go Toronto. I gave out the series 2-2 after 4. I'm already scared it's going to be 3-1 Boston after 4, so I'm happy with that. I think the difference that will be interesting is they did throw out the exact same stinker last year in Tampa. I do feel like it's possible that this defense core is more fundamentally flawed. Like the puck movement was just horrific. I don't know if what they're gonna do. And it's tough because the forwards always get it for not producing, and that's been part of it. But it's hard. Like if you swap these decors and saw how some of Toronto's forwards looked, I think it'd be a different story. And that obviously they'd be coming down on their defenders too. So Labushkin looked terrible. Edmondson was pretty terrible. I thought that they got exposed trying to enforce physically. And that's the difference, that they just never have these guys that can play physical and do it effectively. Like they don't have guys like Kachuk that can be a prick and not get exposed. So
they need a
I
Casey
don't know.
Cizikas.
Yeah, he had an all right game, but I don't know. I didn't really have much on this one. I kind of liked I shouldn't say kind of. I liked Matthews' shot prop. I didn't check where it was, but I saw it was moving. But I would play over 4.5 to minus 145. I think that's my favorite look on this game. I felt like he was pretty involved. I think we'll see him get a lot of looks on the power play still. And it felt like that was almost a low total for like how his game went. So that's kind of the one thing that I actually like. But for me, it feels like there's a lot of question marks to lean into, like backing a Toronto response, where like last year I felt a little more comfortable. Now I feel like pretty like I feel like there's a chance that the Bruins are just significantly better than them at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I mean the
before you
Bruins.
go, I just want to say, Nick, I meant to ask you this. Like in a weird way, we've always talked about these two teams. Like the Bruins are going to be the team that profiles as the team, the one that would win the 3-2 or the 2-1s, the tighter games. I feel like it's switched now, right? Like if the Leafs, that's why I like that Bruins puck line for game one. Feels like if the Bruins are going to win these games, it's going to be because Toronto's just stuck in like that vortex of making mistake after mistake, and the Bruins are going to capitalize that. And that they're once you give this team a couple goals, like it's impossible to catch them because of the goaltending on the other side. So in a weird way, I feel like if you're going to be betting the Bruins, you could just keep looking at the puck line. And I guess it sounds like easy to say hindsight wise, but it's weird how these two teams, you'd imagine their profiles would be the exact opposite. Like Toronto's the team that would be the runaway train when they win because of the offensive firepower, and the Bruins would be the opposite, right? So I don't know. That's something I'm gonna be thinking about a lot here too. Is if I'm interested in betting Boston from this point on, it's going to be on the puck lines.
Yeah, I mean, look, Boston wins 5-1, and they hit 4 posts on top of that.
Yeah.
So,
And when it mattered too.
Yeah, exactly.
That was when
Yeah.
because the Leafs did hit a bunch and missed some chances, but the game was done. So yeah, I think they have a lot of stuff to clean up, and I'm not sold that it's going to happen.
but Lebov, you're a tennis guy. I kind of subscribe to the theory of it doesn't matter if you lose a game in the playoffs, 2-1 or 10-1.
Right.
You just move on to the next game. It's like losing
Absolutely.
a set 6-love. So I'm still interested in a little bit of like maybe Leafs series at one point here. I don't know. It's plus 205 is the best number I see right now. I don't know if you hit that, pull the trigger now, or you wait one more game, but I'm trying to, as the Bruins guy here, I'm saying kind of pump the brakes on. Weren't we talking about how much closer this was until we saw one game? Hey, the Bruins were favored Saturday night in Boston and they won, right? So now, like our math shouldn't change that much. I still think that I would wait for more clarity on the Nylander situation if we get it, but I still think this thing's going to be damn close. The Bruins could very easily shoot themselves in the foot with how they're managing the goalie situation. Like whatever they go with could be the wrong decision, and the Leafs still have enough firepower, I think, to keep it close. This Bruins team again. The special teams converted, but it was still shaky. It wasn't pretty, and I'm not really ready to say the Bruins are setting sail quite yet. To pump the brakes a little bit. So I did kind of consider a Leafs series here plus 205, but I might wait one more game before I consider hitting it.
Yeah, I think I would prefer just taking the plus 120 for tomorrow night if I was going to go down that road. Yeah, and I see what you're saying, like with the Leafs respond or like potential to respond. They did it last year when I think everyone said all the same things, and there was a lot of series last year, like the Jets won too. And I was thinking about that after tonight's game, like I said to you, Tim, just because they absolutely smoked the Knights, and everyone that had the Jets futures, which were really popular, thought that they were onto something, and those became a disaster really quick. And we'll get to that because that did feel like a bit of a different Jets win tonight. But yeah, I think that's all for this game. The usage was weird too. I know it's not over.
Yeah,
Like
Marner.
Yarncrook was like second on among forwards in his first game back or something crazy.
I think it was
I
because
left. I'd had enough. It was Saturday night. I'd watched 2 periods, and that was plenty of that game.
And I think that the way the third period was going, it kind of skews everything. So I'm not. People were making a bigger deal out of that than I think it was. But yeah, Marner didn't get as much 5-on-5 time as a couple other guys, and I'm like, they were down, 5-1 with 4 minutes left. So
Get Paul on the phone.
yeah, Paul's gonna be a salty
Paul Sheldon.
dog. Okay, yeah. So I mean, to your point, Tim, the Leafs lose that one. The Islanders lose a tight one to the Canes, in which they played one of their better periods of the entire season in that second period, I thought, and come up empty-handed. They are the same price that they were ahead of game one. They're plus 205. The Canes minus 250. Total here's 5.5. I think the market is telling us here that Carolina obviously has a lot of room to improve. I also think that the Islanders could be better too with production from Barzal and Horvat. Sline Nelson was pretty non-existent. Like it was a weird game because it was basically the bottom sixes battling it out. And the Predators the Canes just got some spectacular goaltending from Freddie. I think when you look at the big picture of where these two teams were coming into the series, what happened after game one, it's still pretty hard for me to hear that a lot of people would be backing Carolina at this price, just because of how tight things were and how little room there was out there. It does seem like the series is going to go down to bounces and on a game by game basis. So I'm an Islander fan, so you're going to hear me say bet the Islanders here, and you can absolutely just ignore it. But I think that they would be the right side if you're looking at a money line. I don't think this is a bad bet to go to overtime at all. I don't think this is a bad bet to play an alternate under at all. I think like if you want to play an exact score line, you can do that too, because it feels like this thing doesn't go off the rails at all. 1-1, 2-2, stuff like that. 2-1, 3-1 in either direction. Pick your poison here, Nick. But I would lean towards the Islanders and on the money line.
Yeah, I lean with the Islanders as well. And I do think that obviously that game could have gone better for the Islanders. I think that was pretty clear when it was 1-1. The Dobson miss hurt. They had some really good chances.
Yeah, the one thing about the
Barzal
Dobson
cute.
thing that's not keeping me up at night, I don't think that goal would have stood. Like with the way that
Was
was
it offside?
No,
Or
it was.
just-
I think it was a
okay.
little interference from Bashing. But
And yeah, I thought that that the Islanders clearly did way better than anyone expected, sorting it out in the D zone, and that Carolina, like you could see the Aho line, they gave up 0 shots to Gensel, and they had some zone time, but they really got nothing, not even really soft chances. So that would be obviously the pro for the Islanders. I think the con was you could see that Carolina was out of sync in the first 2 periods. Like they were not making plays that were very they weren't very cohesive, and it just didn't seem like they were supporting the puck as well as usual. And there's a lot of missed passes and feet. So I do wonder if maybe it was a bit of a missed opportunity in terms of Carolina was pretty sloppy and they still found a way. But at the same time, I think if you're laying minus 260 with how game 1 went, that seems pretty scary. I wouldn't love doing that. The one prop that I like is Svechnikov to go over 2.5 shots at minus 130. I've played it to minus 140. I should put out there. I've kind of been trying to jump on this all year because I always just feel like he should shoot much more than he does, given how much they control the play and how talented a scorer he is. And he had a really good game 1, I thought. I think he's, when he has been in the lineup in the playoffs, he's been the kind of guy you can count on. He's pretty feisty. He brings it. He's pretty good at finding space. And the other thing to like was at the end of that game, he got into Jarvis' spot on the top line. So I don't know if that's going to hold. We'll see. But either way, I feel like I want to keep riding Svechnikov. I think he could break through with a big playoff here. So that number looks a little low to me. I think if anything, we will see Carolina generate a few more shots than they were able to in that game. I think a lot of people had tough nights on the shot prop side of things, and it has tightened up a lot. I think you really got to be careful playing these overs. I've been watching that. We were lucky that Jarvis put a meaningless shot on at the end of the game. Love Jarvis, but I do think that the Svechnikov, even with considering how tight that game was and how much like the shot props are trending towards unders, there's still some value there.
Yeah, Leboff, I apologize if you said it when I was going to adjust my Wi-Fi here, but Brendan Moore mentioned as well, like, we haven't played meaningful hockey in a long time, and that could have been, a bit of a wake-up call. You're as an Islanders fan, you're probably looking at it as, quite the cop out there from Rod, but because the Islanders did play well, and I feel like I might be, I held off game 1, but I might be interested in, dare I say, the over. Freddie Anderson played far better than I thought. He made some big saves, and I just think that it's hard to keep this Carolina offense at bay for as long as the Islanders, I guess did in game 1. And I know that they've been defending better under Waz of late, but I just feel like the dam is going to break in one of these games, if not multiple of these games. And I can't, it's much like, we'll obviously talk about it at one point, but Washington, right? Like, how long can they just hold on for dear life? I feel like that's the Islanders a little bit here. And while they did control play, it's too many players to, Carolina has too much firepower, I feel like, to keep them off the board. So when I say over, I mostly mean Carolina dragging the game to an over type game.
Okay. Knights and Stars. This is a game 1. We talked a little bit about it on our Western Conference preview, but we'll just do a quick refresher here. Dallas is minus 130 at home. Knights plus 110. This total is 5.5. I'm probably going to pass here. I would lean towards Dallas as a favorite, but I'm pretty terrified of this Knights team. But Tim, you have a little more conviction than I do.
Yes, I do have more conviction on Dallas. Leboff, I can't trust the Vegas Golden Knights potential. I'm gonna have to see it before I believe it. Stone's back. They, Petrangelo, whatnot. I think this number, yes, it says Dallas is better, but with home ice, I think it's more than what this number is showing. I'm willing to bet Dallas here. Like the Vegas thing, I still have too many question marks with the goaltending situation, and I again, just because they have the potential with the bodies, we still have to see it. I think Dallas is ready to to really get going here. So I think we're getting Dallas cheap here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely don't entirely disagree with that. I'm invested enough that I will pass, but I think it is like a very reasonable look. And I kind of like the over 5.5 too. I think that, there's been a lot of these games that have trended to being a lot tighter. And like you said, with kind of needing to see it, Tim, I think this one I'll need to see it to believe it, to think that this deserves a total of 5.5, especially if it's Hill. He's just been so shaky. The Stars just come at you in waves. They can defend really well, but I still think that, their offensive upside, looking at a total of 5.5, Ettinger's been shaky enough. And the Knights, they've trended towards lower totals, but I still think, and it's not like they were the lowest scoring team when they won the cup last year either. They played relatively high event hockey over that run. So I thought that looked a little low, and you could parlay Dallas and the over. It is plus 225. I think that's a pretty reasonable sweat. I could see something like 4-2 Dallas being a pretty common score line. So I kind of think this one could be a little high event too, and that maybe some of the narratives that are working into the other series don't necessarily apply to this one. So I'm kind of leaning towards the Stars winning a fairly high scoring game.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll probably just bet the Stars here. Kings and Oilers, another game one. Another one we talked about on our Western Conference preview, but we can do another quick jump, especially because this line's moved. Kings are now plus 142, Oilers minus 170. The total is 6. So the Kings price has come down a bit since we last spoke. At this point, I would pass on Los Angeles. I do think that they put this thing. They give this they give the Oilers a ton of problems. We saw it last series. Saw it the series before that. Like, this is not an easy matchup for Edmonton at all. A team that can neutralize speed really well with their defensive play. I actually think overtime looks in this series are going to be fun too. You'd imagine the prices will be a little bit more appetizing in Oilers games, just because they're always going to be a big favorite, or they'll be a big favorite at home, I should say, and then the totals can get out of whack if with a team like the Oilers on one side of the matchup. So that's a thing I would consider as well here. Not the type of matchup you think could end up going past the regulation, but we saw it a lot with these two teams, and they're very familiar with one another. Nick, you still like the Kings at this price?
Yeah, I still at the time of recording, the Kings are plus 145 on Bet365, and I still think that's worthy of a small play. I think there's a good chance they just make this game competitive. It's one of these things, we've seen like kind of what the Islanders did to the Canes. It's a little different when you're getting in there and you're actually playing the playoff game for the Oilers. You're jumping right into that, the meaningful matchup, and the Kings are just going to try to come out and make it a slog on the road. So I think plus 145 is a pretty good number. We've talked about it a little on the preview, why I think that the Kings, while they're, arguably one of the worst teams in the playoffs based off the way the season went, I still think the roster has a lot of upside. They have a lot of talent. They have guys who underachieved this season, and we've already seen guys like Lindholm break through with a goal tonight for the Canucks. So I think the Kings have candidates like that if they had a big playoff, I wouldn't be surprised. So to me, this number looks a little too long. And then I also like Adrian Kempe is at minus 130 to record 2.5 shots on goal. If like that price seems like, first off, he's still on the top line. He's still had a great season. And you look at it last year versus the Oilers, he averaged 5.1 shots. The year before, he averaged 4.7. He's gotten it done versus them in the playoffs. This Oilers team is better defensively than the others, but I still don't think they're going to just completely lock it down and give up like 18 shots here. So that to me looked like a pretty good opportunity, like just to stick with what's worked, because I was pretty surprised at that number being that low. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the series we're just seeing like minus 160 on that prop, because Kempe just goes off and just puts shot after shot on net. So I want to kind of just keep it chalky and stick with what's worked to add like what seems like a really discounted number.
Yeah, I have no problem with your Kings look, and the total in this game is 6 pretty much everywhere, but there is a 5.5 out there. And well, I know that the Kings want to play that lower event style, that i.e. Capitals, Islanders, but the way the Oilers play, I think, and talk about actually start with the goaltending. I don't know if I trust the goaltending really on both sides enough to keep the number low. So I also think for all the overs I've mentioned, live has been an option too, with a lot of these slow starts to games and then breaking open later. So if you're afraid to dip your toe in from the jump, I would just say watch a little bit and see where we are. I think it's again, I know these teams want to play a certain way. I still have this bias against a lot of this goaltending that I can't trust. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that point goes both ways too. And I know like trying to explain some of like all the little intricacies people should look for. I think, smart people know on their own, but like also getting on the live under can be pretty good because I played it when I missed on the first period under and it was 1-1 in that Isles game. I was like, okay, here we go. This isn't getting anywhere. And the live it was like plus 160 for under 6.5 right at 1-1. And I was like, it felt pretty comfortable that there was a good chance it would just settle into, a really tight rhythm like everyone is expecting. And then all of a sudden you're getting a way better number because, there's a power play goal and kind of an ugly one from Freddie, which was the fear. But I think that's something to watch for too, is if you really feel like it's something like maybe that Caps Rangers game, although those ones are a little different because if the Rangers go up, it just completely throws the game on its head because then the Caps have to actually try to score a goal.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. The Caps are plus 220 at MSG on Tuesday night. We'll flip the calendar to Tuesday, where the Rangers will be waiting as a minus 270 favorite right now, total 5.5. The first period was beautiful Caps hockey. I thought that the refs got involved pretty early, and that was really scary. That game giving us the 0-0 first period prop, despite what seemed like the entire period being on special teams, was we deserved that one. I feel like probably a couple bad breaks throughout the season that we got paid back for there. I will say I think that this game probably plays out similarly. Like the Caps come out, and you always expect in the playoffs like teams to be shot out of a cannon after they lose game one, or teams to be shot out of a cannon in game one if they're the home team. But for the Caps, it's the exact opposite. Like you want them to be whatever the opposite of being shot out of a cannon is. Like that's what you want if you're back in the Caps here. You want them just to be so detailed and so brave, blocking shots and whatever. They did
like when the cannon shoots like a dud, when the cannon like misfires.
Yeah. I think they could do it again. So I think like the first period looks are fine once again. Like the Rangers, why would you force it? Like why would you force the issue too when you know like over 60 minutes you're gonna get your chances, you're gonna get your power plays, and there's no reason to like go pedal to the metal right out the gate. So I think that this is gonna be something we see again in the first period. I don't hate the 0-0 again. And I would look at the Capitals if they get any semblance of a defense core back. Sandin and Jensen not playing game one was not ideal, Nick.
No. Yeah, I think honestly, I felt like the crazy thing was I don't think there was any Caps that I felt disappointed in. They're just so much worse than the Rangers. They have no talent. Like it's just, I thought that was, it would be, and then maybe they will show a little better because that's the thing. I think they really need Sandin and Jensen. I think people are forgetting that those are two, like, no one follows the Caps and no one cares about their middling defenders. But those two are both significantly better than McElrath, Oreo, even Alexiev, who's been pretty good. But I do think it does move the needle a lot. If they both sit, I would just play the Rangers puck line. I think it's a better than 50-50 chance that the Rangers just completely dominate them again. And I do like the first period under again to minus 125. So we'll see what's out there. Those come out last. So, but based off what's out there, usually it's pretty in line with the game total. That's my prediction of what the price will be, which would be some move or quite a bit of movement from today. So I like that. I'm with you too. I think it's the same thing right at the start of the game. The Caps are just going to try to hold down the fort, keep doing their absolute best not to make a mistake and somehow get something going the other way. But the other thing is, I think that the Rangers defended really, really well, and they have, I think, been defending better at even strength than people think. I think it's been a little sharper than some of the analytics suggest. And, Shesterkin looked sharp enough when called upon. Like, there's a few decent saves there, and then the only goal I don't think he had a chance on. So I feel pretty confident with him. So I kind of like the first period under there. Will most likely be my favorite play. And then I like the Rangers there. Like I said, if Sandin and Jensen sit, although it does sound like one of them at least is going to get back in the mix, especially with Oreo out now. Because it's just, even though he wasn't even playing much tonight, but it's just like,
Right.
you can already barely, you're already playing AHLers. You're at least just playing the better of the AHLers. And now it's like you're getting into your third and fourth AHL call ups. So it's, yeah, getting pretty tough.
Put Nick Dowd back there.
Yeah, I
Seriously,
mean,
he might do better.
I mean, guys, I nailed the handicap with my series spread line. I told you too many goal scorers like Matt Rempe would just break this thing open, right? It's the Rangers got guys like Rempe, the guys, the snipers. But Leboff, I actually think that your take on Bruins Leafs applies to the Capitals Rangers series, and like the Rangers are going to pretty much win by 2 if they're going to win, it feels like, because once the Capitals have to start cheating just a little bit, I mean, they're just like they expose themselves to that extra goal. So, Nick, I think that's a good take on the puck line there, because that's what I feel like tends to happen to this team. And they're talking about stats during the broadcast of like they either win by a goal or lose by like 4, because that's kind of how they have to play. I am worried about Lindgren. I know he's been great all year, but it just seems like a lot of games, a lot of shots, a lot of pressure. That would lead to that again, that puck line, that big Rangers. So I'm lucky you guys had on. I think you pretty much bang on.
Okay, that brings us to Bolts and Cats. Panthers took this one 3-2 with a late goal from Stamkos to make it look a little closer. I think that Vasilevsky was the goalies actually were both brilliant in this game, I thought. The Lightning are plus 150 for game 2, Panthers minus 180, total 5.5. That point about the goaltenders I made is leaning to my bet. I think I like overs here. I think this thing can end up going off the rails pretty quickly. We said that about game 1, didn't go that way. This thing was very close to breaking open, I thought. A couple 10 bell saves don't get made, and all of a sudden things start to look a little more crooked on the scoreboard. I also think there's more power plays to come here, obviously, than we saw in game 1, 2, as things start to heat up and these two teams start to really hate one another and the blood starts to boil. So that's always a good sign. So I would look at overs here. Nick, anything on Bolts and Cats?
No, I thought all the adjustments looked fair. I felt, confident before the series. Like we gave out Panthers series spread, and I'm sweating that. And this looks like enough of an adjustment for me. Oh, the Canucks just tied it. This looks like enough of an adjustment for me based off how much kind of slapped them at even strength. One thing to like about the Panthers game, and I know that, a big pro for them, especially in that Leafs series where I think it's more of a team that you want to be doing this versus, is that they didn't go out of their way to get sucked into stupid penalties. And I know that's kind of part of their game, but it's smart. I mean, you look at like Tim's handicap on why he thought the Lightning were pretty live in the series. One of his biggest points was, well, look how many penalties the Panthers typically take and look how good the Lightning penalty kill is. So I think that's a big strength that's going to work in their favor. But like you said, Mike also really could shake this game up if maybe we see some more penalties from the Panthers. But I thought that this price looks fair. It's at minus 185 at the time of recording. And, the Lightning obviously still have the offensive punch to steal some games here and Vasilevsky, but it also felt like at even strength, it was pretty comfortable who the better team was. I thought that you could see the advantages that the Panthers defense core was offering them just in terms of moving the puck and breaking up plays at the line more consistently. So I feel good about the Panthers' chances in this series, but also this is a pretty big adjustment from the game 1 number.
I'm going to go back to the well again, leave off with the over it. You bring me great comfort in saying what I saw, and that there was opportunities for it to blow open. And Panthers power play goes 1 for 3. Tampa Bay's goes 1 for 2. That should be a good recipe for an over. It just didn't happen. I expect the power plays to continue to click here. And again, it was just a lot of great saves. I'm not going to be scared away. I still think that we should have gotten we're going to get a Winnipeg, Colorado game one look in one of these Panthers Lightning game just because of the styles of play that they like to play and how lethal power plays are. So I'm going to go back to the well with the over again.
All right, let's talk about Winnipeg and Colorado. It's a pick 'em right now. Totals at 6. Of course, the first game featured 13 goals, 7 by Winnipeg, 6 by Colorado, and um, chaos. Absolute chaos from the jump. It's really hard in like series environments to try not to let that cloud what you're going to do for the next game. But when you see the goaltending performance from Georgiev, it becomes a thing, especially with what the narrative was going into the series with Justice and Noonan being hurt. I mean, not hurt, but sick for game 1, too. So Georgiev had to wear it. There's a lot of stuff going on here with the Avs goaltending that really kind of makes this a bizarre game to handicap. I think I would lean towards the Jets. If anything, I've got nothing. I also would say, man, this if the playoffs taught us anything, it's to expect the unexpected. So maybe this one ends like 1-1 or something. Georgiev stands on his head. That's not out of the question, of course. But yeah, I mean, really, really hard to figure out what to do after a game like that, Nick.
Yeah, I actually still think, like, I think it's more likely we just see another chaotic game like that. I could see this being like that Flyers-Penn series. We kind of talked about how leading into that series, I wasn't very confident that it would be like the low event slog that people were expecting in the totals, just because the Avs aren't getting good goaltending. They're the best offensive team in the league, so it's a pretty big. And it should be like, it's obviously notable too that the Avs defensive play has been pretty shaky over the last month, so it's been a big combination of things. I do think that the score lines played a big factor too. We've talked about what happens to the Avs when they have to chase games. It's a bit of a different look. And then obviously the goaltending was pretty horrific. I don't think it was as horrific. Like, this happened a lot this weekend. And I'll just throw Money Puck under the bus a little bit here, but their model is ridiculous. Like, some of the sequences, if you actually watch, and I think it gives a bit of a bad name to like all models, because some of the data and every person looks out there and then throws the Money Puck score, like the Leafs one, and theirs will be like 3 goals off the other 3 most popular public models. And then it's like everyone thinks that's what all these people using this data are pulling it from, when that model's just like way off. So I thought that it looked like they were a little extreme on Georgiev tonight. He was pretty awful, but it seemed like
yeah,
it was
he got roasted. Like the Nemestikov one was like, people were roasting him for that. I'm like, what do you want him to do for that? Like, that was a bad turnover. But I thought the same thing. Like, he was bad. Like, and you need.
And the Leafs one, like the Leafs game was nuts. I was like, what?
I don't even want to.
Like, I'll defend the Leafs if they deserve it, and that was like a firm pummeling. So, anyways, just note that I think there's better places to pull from, but it is the most popular one. So
I think this is part of the problem too. Is like, so this is going to get thrown around, right? And the Avalanche sports radio, whatever, people are just going to be using these numbers and talk about how terrible the performance was from Georgiev, and that's going to be a huge part of this handicap for game 2, because this isn't just a regular goalie. All goalies are weird, but Georgiev has like a history with this kind of situation, right? Like, it's not been a straightforward career for this guy. So he's a bit of a live wire. And that's part of the problem here. I think, like, I've got no idea. I think I'm so happy this thing is priced as a pick 'em. I think it's exactly right, because I could hear, I think I could talk to 100 different people and 50 people would be like, I like the Avs to bounce back here. And then I'll sit in another room and be like, how can you bet on the Avalanche after watching that on Sunday night too? Tim, what do you got?
Yeah, well, I think when I first talked about the series, I said to you guys, like, do you think that the Jets will be dogs in every game? And I think what I really meant was, will they be the pricing be that the power rating is like still Avs, pro Avs every game? Because I could see the line moving to a point where it was like the goaltending disparity was so big that it could make the Jets, power rated possibly better, and they've matched up well with the Avalanche as of late. So that was part of what I was considering, and also too, when you talk about like the overs in the game script again, it's because Colorado 10,000 this hole where then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They have to, and Lincoln at any time or over a half point. Parise was plus money for a point. He's been playing on that top line for Drouin, and Lincoln obviously had a great night tonight. So he was minus 120 for a point, and Parise was like plus 165 for a point. So I think I'll be playing those for game 2 as well.
Yeah, and I should note too, like right now there is plus 105 out there on the Avs. I lean that way, and I would play plus 105. I still think, like, as much as I was, kind of hating on people, like they outshot them 43-20, whatever tonight, but I don't think they were the better team. And a big part of the push was obviously the game script, but they also did get as bad a goaltending performance. And the other thing that I'm going to say is I will like them more if Annanen's back. I know he's been sick, but he's been really good. It was already like pretty firm conversations that he might just end up getting the start in game 1 anyways before all this. So he's never going to do worse than Georgiev did tonight. And he's been pretty good down the stretch. And then if they're getting a better game script, that's going to help them a lot. So I think you're getting a pretty good discount if you're getting plus 105. So I kind of lean with the Avs, and at that number, I would just take the chance that they get right.
All right, that brings us to the Predators and Canucks. This game is still ongoing. The Canucks took a 3-2 lead and steepened to the third. Just working off what we saw this line close at for game 1, it was plus 125. The Canucks minus 150, plus 125 in the Preds, and then the Canucks were minus 150 in total 5.5. Pretty sure we'll see something, bang on with that. Maybe the Predators shorten a bit because they were pretty impressive through the first 40. I don't want to walk away from what I wrote down when we first sat down to record this, which had the Predators up 2-1 going into the third. I think that this series is one that you're going to be betting overtimes a lot, and there's just nothing between these two teams. They're both real solid. We've talked a lot up in the second half about the Canucks, how they want to play games, and they keep things close, and they just end up edging teams out at the end of things. And don't think that we're going to see that script this series get off that script all that often. So I think the overtime here is going to be appealing throughout. Nick.
Yeah, I'll probably end up on some sort of overtime or maybe unders again. I think that we're going to see the Canucks just kind of settle into just playing defensive lockdown hockey. So we'll see where those numbers go. The over might even miss tonight by the time this empty net goes in, or a game tying goal goes in. But I think that is the way to look. And I might lean with the Preds, but it does also feel like the Canucks kind of found their game. So I don't know if I'll have too much on this one in the end.
Yeah, I have the Preds tonight, unfortunately. I also have overtime. So I think because I leaned overtime, I just also sprinkled Preds as well, because I was like, okay, well, if I think the game's going to go overtime, I'll just take the plus 125 dog as well while I'm at it. And Leboff, not mentioned in your overtime handicap is this is just going to be the sleep killer.
Yeah.
This is the round 1 sleep killer. I'll tell you right now, this matches up perfectly for that. This is what people talk about, the Stanley Cup playoffs. This is the 2:30 a.m. on the East Coast. This is the sleep killer. This series right here.
Yeah. No, I would not be surprised.
If you tie in Nashville in this game, Tim, you've had a really bad period in the time we've been recording. Because I
have bad Wi-Fi and a bad period.
Bad Wi-Fi, bad period. I know. I can't believe you guys sit up at this hour for this. I mean, I guess I would too, but it just makes me thankful that it's 10:32 here and not 12:32.
All right, that'll do it for this episode. We will be back in a couple days to preview the Wednesday, Thursday slate that will be coming at us. But until then, best of luck with all your bets. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And thank you to our producer Noah for all the hard work on the back end.